then I had a decision to make. That's when I can either quit because everything's burned up. We just got equipment. We got all these cool sales. Or we don't. So then I started networking. And networking was another big, huge change. Because when you're networking and you're meeting more people, you have more of a tie to the community. Most important thing you can do when you start networking is, number one, start. And the second most important thing you can do is see what you can contribute to others. And the third is to use your 2 ears. It's not about what you're going to say to them. It's about what they're going to say to you and what they're going to teach you.
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of 23 Journeys, a network with creatives. I am your host, Tato Datsun, with my lovely co-host, Naomi.
Hey, welcome back, everybody.
And we have a great episode today. I have a wonderful friend. She is, I guess you say, a visionary. You know, she is a genius in what she does, and she is a great creator. I'd like to introduce my friend, Katie Taylor.
Thank you so much, Tato. It is a pleasure to be here with you and Naomi. And yes, you are a very good friend. We've been working together a long time, so I appreciated the opportunity to be here with you.
Yeah. Well, you know, obviously I know who you are, but I'll give a little quick background on you. But then, you know, we can also have you elaborate too. Katie Taylor runs a awesome company, Savvy Custom Swag. They do creative products that you can use, whether, as if you can see right here, I'm actually wearing a jacket. We have our photography videography company titled as some images, all embroidered, screen print, you name it, laser. She does all great products. But Katie, you could definitely elaborate more than I can.
I think the biggest thing that I do that's different than what you see anywhere else is that we really don't just create swag. That's one way of looking at it. Of course, we're going to make something. But for us, the biggest thing that we do is create an experience. And if you will allow, I really would love to share with everyone the vision of this company. And the big vision is that we embody the possibilities of sharing joy, opportunity, and creativity with the world. And the other goal is that we move, touch, and inspire everybody we come in contact with through the design, shipping, and packaging of extraordinary gifts.
That's wonderful. Sheesh. That's a way to say it.
That
creating is more of the experience.
The thing that we want. It's all about the experience, right? It's all about the experience, Naomi. And so, even though you're looking at this as maybe some people will think I'm going to go online and go find somebody who just, I don't even know, some of the competitors online, and just don't want to name any names. But you go there, you buy something, and some of my customers have said, "Okay, I went there and I bought it, but nobody asked me a question. Nobody determined if what I'm buying is actually going to help me. Or am I just going to be like, flushing money, down the commode, so to speak? Mm-hmm. Why am I buying it? Is it going to work? What's the purposes of it?" I basically sit down and I consult with our customers. I look at the fabrics. I don't say, you say you want a shirt. It's not a shirt. What kind of shirt? When are you going to wear the shirt? Is that shirt going to represent you well? Are you going to be painting in the shirt, or are you going to actually be doing your quoting when you first present yourself to the customer at the door? Like, what are the colors of your brand? These are the kinds of questions that I ask. I don't just sit there and sell you a shirt, because I tell people I'm not here to sell you something.
Yes.
I'm here to create an experience and a customer journey, because that's the point. It's supposed to be a part of an advertising specialty about marketing, about your branding. And branding isn't supposed to be a buzzword.
Yeah. So like more of like a white glove treatment in this kind of space, more of that personal touch that lets people to be able to feel like, okay, I'm part of the process instead of just click. That's about it.
That's basically too, like if you remember back to when we were choosing certain shirts for the company and everything, we needed like things that were like, we're always moving around, we're sweating all the time and stuff like that. So we needed to look professional, but in materials that would allow us to breathe and everything while we're sweating and everything and moving around. And you brought examples of different kind of things so we could try them, feel them and stuff, see what looked good and everything. And also where if we were to go online and just order offline without even knowing what it is, like we might not have known like, oh, these don't fit us so well or something like that too. So yeah.
Yes. So yes, and I think you're right. It is about there is the white glove service aspect of it, but it's also about the fact that I bring over 12 years of experience in marketing, which was my previous work, to the table. So I serve and function in a sense as a marketing consultant for your swag. So and I'll be honest, there are times where I tell my customers, look, it's against marketing advice. So if you go to a hospital and you're going to do something and they say it's against medical advice and they make you sign that if you do this thing, it's against medical advice, right? I haven't made anybody sign it. Most of the time, I'm able to sway the customer, but sometimes no, I'm not trying to give them what they want. I'm trying to give them what they need, and I'm trying to give them what will actually have them create a customer journey for their team that's going to work. And they don't know. They're just thinking it's a shirt's a shirt. They don't. I just recently had a customer who said they got some new swag and they were like, wow, I've been buying this for years. Nobody ever told me there were different fabrics or that there were different ways that I could do this.
Right.
So now they have something they love.
And then, so when you started your business, you started out as a single mother. What were some of the challenges that you dealt with, building your business? You had the marketing background, but then you're like, you know what? I don't want to be in the corporate world, but you wanted to do your own thing. Like, tell us how that was.
It was a little bit different than that. Is that I started out with a marketing company first as a marketing consultant. And it really was because I was a single mom and my one child, my son was like, we'd just broken up from his father and he was very upset and I was going out to work in marketing and he was like, I don't see you anymore. You're not here. And what I heard was, you're not here and dad's not here. And I don't want that. And it broke my heart. Okay. And so I had to find a way to make a living. And I'm saying, how am I going to do this? And I had another friend who said to me, well, you're really good at this. Why don't you start a business? And so the first business I started was actually a marketing company called Prospecting Professionals. I was doing all kinds of marketing analysis, a lot of service orientation on how do you get the customer, how do you bring them in the door, and how do you consistently allow them to come and know who you are as a brand. So that's where I made most of it. And that's where we actually started the work. But I guess I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because I know you were asking the question. But just for the listening audience out there, is that the first company I started, I was a single mom. Later, I met a wonderful man, and that's another whole part of the journey.
The whole part of the journey, and the journey is always about evolving and transcending from where we were to get to our next destination. Because you can't grow a business being the same exact person when you first started. You take whatever business or whatever you're doing in life, and you progress down that path to reach wherever your goals are and stuff.
That's exactly right.
Awesome. So custom products require creativity. I know you are a very creative person with the marketing background and business strategy. So we joked about it a little bit earlier off camera. Like, how do you balance that creativity and the business? And
I would probably say that, unfortunately, it's probably the wrong answer, but I don't think I found that balance. I think I have more balance now than I had in the beginning days. I think if you're going to say there's a balance, here was my joke about the balance, is that I just dragged all of my friends and family members into the business. So then we were all in the stuff together.
Yep.
Like whatever pain I was having, they were all having it, right?
But
of course, they also got the joys. But no, I think that work-life balance, for an entrepreneur, with the, what is it? You started your business in your basement kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
That's a lot of us.
So when it came to Savvy Custom Swag, yes, that was the start of the business in the basement, have everybody working for us. My poor husband was always said before we got married that he never wanted to work in the business. He had his own model of what he was doing in his business. Yes. Unfortunately, yes, he got dragged into. But that's how the work-life balance worked. How does it function now? Probably similarly. But I think that everybody in the family has learned and grown. One of the things that I regret is probably not understanding work-life balance more. But one of the things that I've now seen coming full circle as my two children are now young adults is that they have all grown. They've all gained skills. Like they learned how to make money. They learned how it's made. They learned the ways in which you have to present yourself. They have appreciation for other people's work, for other business owners. They know that if they're in trouble, nope, your mom's not going to give you any money, but she will give you a job. So there's always a job available because I have a business, right?
Yeah.
So, as I tell them, money doesn't grow on a tree. But those ways, I think, looking at it now, they've actually become better people because of their exposure to the principles of building a business. And I also like to joke around and say that, hey, you don't just learn from all the good things I did, you also learn from my mistakes. And the mistake thing is, don't do what I did. Right? And of course, I'm sorry, I didn't make any mistakes. I'm perfect in every way. Don't tell the kids. But in case they saw something that they thought could have been done a little better, I'll say it that way, they could also learn from that. I said, hey, if I had it to do over again, this is the way I would probably have approached it this way. That would have made things a little easier, a little smoother. So I think it's been great for a great opportunity for my family to grow.
That's cool. I mean, me and Naomi, we have 2 young daughters, and they're young, in school, like grade school age and stuff. And our oldest, she came to my wife talking about that she wants to have her own podcast and she wants to do her own creative stuff. And she has her own business ideas and stuff. And she has like, oh, here's the color schemes and everything else like that. So it's like your kids really watch you, whether it's the good or the bad, they pick up your traits. Yeah. So everything that you said, really, I hope a lot of our listeners can take that in, like whether they have young kids or they have older kids, that what you're doing is going to help your family in a sense,
Yeah, they're constantly watching you and everything and stuff. Because it's like, I mean, our oldest daughter, she's 8 and everything. And it's like, what 8-year-olds come to you and say, Mom, I need to pick out my colors for my brand. And like, what color shades are there? How many color shades are there? I'm like, whoa, let's slow down a little bit here and all and stuff. But like, she was on it and everything. So I was like, wow, that's actually really impressive. Because it's like, if you have that mindset as you're growing and stuff like that, and you see what the possibilities are, then it's like what your possibilities of what you can do when you get older are a lot broader and everything.
Exactly. And besides all that, we are hiring interns. I mean, I always need new creatives to come into the business, so please, right on over, no problem.
All right, when she grows a little bit more, I got you.
Hey, it's a very family-friendly environment.
Yeah. I mean, we all of us entrepreneurs, we all go through these phases, especially in the beginning years. Did you ever feel like quitting? Just stopping?
Only in the beginning years? Aren't I still beginning? Okay. So I think so. Yeah, pretty much. No, actually, in the beginning, I didn't know enough to think about quitting. Right? I just wasn't quite smart enough then to know that I should have thought about quitting. I just kept going, Now that I actually know a little better, I feel like, did I just do that?
It's like, I made it, right?
Ooh. No, I think that actually as I started to grow, that's when I thought more about, can I do this? Is this going to work? Right? Because as I grew, then you start growing into hiring employees and you start trying to figure out, and if you're me at least, you thought that that all you had to do was be a good person, don't steal, make certain that your staff has an adequate paycheck, basic benefits, the basic, don't yell or scream at them, just normal things, right? I just thought if my character was good, that would just be all you needed to know about management. And I think designing a brand new product design is easier than the skills that you need to really make management work. Because the key thing I know that has made me want to pull my hair out, so to speak, or maybe sometimes throw in the towel has been experiences I've had when I'm trying the very best to make everybody not happy, but at least do a good job in the company. And then it's a communication style, or we're like talking past each other. And or I know that they're a good person and I think I'm a good person, and we're trying to make a communication happen, and it's all this, there's conflict. And I think that has probably been harder than the creative side of the business.
Yeah.
Like learning that there are different personality types, learning that, like the golden rule, which was do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's what I started with. And it's true in a sense, right? I think it's more like in a character way.
Yeah.
But it's also not as true, because the biggest challenge that, again, would say these are the times when I wanted to quit, is that in terms of characters, I think everybody knows you don't want to lie, you don't want to steal, like these things. But the other part was each personality is different and people are different. And learning about those matters threw me for the longest time, because I would treat everyone as if they're the same person.
Yeah.
All humans were the same in my world. Again, as long as I didn't lie, steal, cheat, kill anybody or anything like that, then I thought, oh, I'm a good leader. And it's not quite true.
Yeah, because you have your people that are extroverts, you got your introverts, you have your analytical people, you have your creative people, you have your lazy people, you need your self-starters, you have your people who need a boost, and it's like you have to figure that all out. And that's, it's a testament to you that, you've been working through all these years, and you've worked, I've met some of your staff and stuff in the past. I'm sure you've, switched and got different people, obviously your kids there too. And, there's a testament that you've been able to grow your business in a way to have employees and such. What were some key turning points when you grew your business from the smaller operation and actually pulling in 7 figures in sales?
I think that the biggest thing that was a change came out of, if you ever heard, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And so I think the biggest thing that was another milestone was, remember I said we built our business in the basement. And then in 2016, 16 going into 17, I had a fire. And some fireworks hit this rubber mulch that was near our home, burned into the rubber mulch, burned the house. My husband said it didn't burn down because there was still some stuff there. But from the vernacular or general way, we'd say the house burned down. Came home on a New Year's Eve, watched this burn down. 5-6 fire trucks companies later, and we're kind of homeless on New Year's Eve going into 2017. So then I had a decision to make. That's when I can either quit because everything's burned up, we just got equipment, we got all these cool sales, or we don't and we move on. And so I made the decision to try and go into a 6,000 square foot building, which then led to meeting, I think, a guest that you've had on before, Josh Buchter. It led to meeting a lot of different people. So that was probably one of the changing points. Another point was then hitting COVID and having to make a lot of pivots dealing with COVID. So those were some of the milestones, but they're not the happy things, actually. But I think in business, the things that you deal with, the things that are actually the adversities, are usually the backdrop to the successes.
Yeah.
So in terms of the fire, how did the fire make a success? Well, I would have been comfortable, I think, just building the business from home and making it a certain way. Whereas by forcing me to get out and to go into this other scenario, I had to meet a lot of different people. And it pushed me to grow the business in a different way. I think the next big thing with the COVID, it forced me to dive into other arenas. When COVID hit, I was only selling to one particular market. It was the real estate market predominantly and some contractors or people in the trades. After that, I started selling to smaller home care agencies. And so, because believe it or not, home care agencies use a lot of promotional products. And I don't know if anyone would think of it that way, but if you're there and you've ever had to take care of an elderly relative and they had home care, and then when the nurse or the intake coordinator comes out and they bring you this folder, and the folder has the agency's name on it, that's actually a promotional product. That folder is a printed product, right? And then they have usually a pen. And if anyone's experienced it, you have that ink pen that goes in the folder with all the paperwork you just found for your elderly relative. And that pen has their logo on it. That's another branded item. And then they bring you these little pill minders as things go along. And it has like the days of the week and has all the pills. And usually on one side of it is the logo of the agency again. That's actually another branded swag item, right? And then, so when you think about it though, because of COVID, we knew that the one place that was open were home care agencies. But I thought, I'm still small, so these bigger agencies and conglomerates, they're not going to give me the time of day. So my business development manager at the time said, we kind of talked to each other, we said, why don't we call these home care agencies that are smaller, they're independent ones. They're not necessarily in a big organization. And so we started calling them, and that's how we got more and more business as COVID was evolving.
Right.
So it kept us alive. But that process of doing that is also what helped us to grow.
Right. So the lesson I'm getting from you is that take those adversities not as a stop, but see where you can take yourself to the next level, pivot, and reinvent yourself and everything. That's inspiring. I love it.
Yeah, it like came into my brain of like, I was just hearing pivot and stuff like that, whether it's a good thing that happened, a bad thing that happened, pivot. And that's what sets you apart is people that can pivot and continue on and expand their horizons from there and stuff, even if it was something bad that happened and everything and all, and didn't let them shut them down and all.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Me and you met networking.
Right.
We met in a networking group and everything. So as a creative, growing your business to the scale that you have it at and such, how's networking really played its role also in your growth?
Now, I have to say to you that the first portion too, and just to clarify, the first iteration of this business wasn't even called Savvy Custom Swag. It was actually Get Your Gift Here. It started out as a gift store. And I was online, and then something happened. I had hired this company. All the things you learn, right? I hired this company to do my not social media. It was where you do all your AdWord campaigns and you're listed on Google, all your Google AdWords.
Okay, yeah.
So, but I'd hired this company online because I was getting too busy and I didn't have time to manage it. So they were managing all of my ads and my AdWords account. But what I didn't know is they weren't following all the rules. Yes. So they managed to get me blacklisted from Google. So I built all this up, all these companies coming to me. I had all these nice AdWords, and then I got blacklisted from Google, and then all of a sudden this business went away because they had no social tie to me. And so then so of course we had to go through a lot to figure out how do I get this undone, right? And it wasn't even like I was doing anything wrong. I wasn't like, selling drugs to children or something or doing anything bad.
Yeah.
It was just these tiny parameters that I didn't realize weren't being followed. But in the meantime, though, while we were trying to get that fixed, here we were, and I didn't have any business. And so I remember I hired this personal assistant, and she said, her name is Amy, and she said to me, you got to get out and you got to go on Meetup. And I'm like, what's Meetup? I don't even know what Meetup is. What's that? And so she got me on the phone, and she got me and told me how to get an account. And I went on this Meetup, and I started going to these networking events. And then eventually it led me to another networking event, a women's group. And then someone there introduced me to BNI, and that's where you and I met. And so then I started networking. And networking was another big, huge change. Because when you're networking and you're meeting more people, you have more of a tie to the community. You're out there, you're introducing yourself, you're introducing your brand, and you're learning about other people's brands. Because I think if I had to share with oh my gosh, I think I'm getting a little too old now. But I'm starting to sound like my mom now, which is not good. But as they used to say, I was going to share with you young people, right? Oh my gosh, right? Sounds like your mom too? All right, great. Is that I think if the one thing I would share with the up and coming creatives, let's say it that way, is that you want to actually get out there, you want to network, you want to meet other people for many reasons. One is that it's not just about selling something. You're not there to sell, you're there to learn and to grow. And there's so many things that I don't know yet. I'm still learning and still trying to grow in. And when you're networking and you're talking to other people, you can avoid, just like I said about my children, you don't have to do everything I did in this same way. You could learn. When you're talking with other people, they've already done some things that they could say, hey, I tried that didn't work. Or, hey, I'm doing this, you should try doing this.
Right, yeah.
And that networking, beyond anything about finding new referrals, because people go, I'm going to find more referrals. The most important thing you can do when you start networking is, number one, start. And the second most important thing you can do is see what you can contribute to others. And the third is to use your 2 ears. It's not about what you're going to say to them. It's about what they're going to say to you and what they're going to teach you.
Right. Yeah.
Try to learn as much as you can from other people. And that will get you to anywhere you want to be.
Sound advice. I remember for us, when we first started networking and everything, it was like, it was cool because we both were like the creatives in that group and everything, and our own different aspects and stuff. So it was like, for me, it was like a really great time for me to learn, because I was still in the young parts of my business and everything. And I was like learning from people like you and other people in the chapter and stuff that just kind of just showed different ways. Okay, well, communications and like, okay, we'll make sure givers, like they do the whole thing, help give to others and hope to receive and everything like that. Don't expect it, but hope that like, hey, if I'm putting stuff out, I should be able to get some kind of return out of it.
Yeah, and it kind of does. I haven't seen anything else. I have to say another thing too is that the more I give, the more I receive.
Yeah.
I never can feel like I just gave something. Like I just gave it and then I did a good thing. Like if you're really honest with yourself, and you're really giving from your heart, you're always going to get back more. And sometimes it's going to come in these weird, circuitous paths. Let me think. Similar to now, we're here on a podcast.
Yeah, right.
And so you can never tell, as another old phrase my mother used to say, you can never tell where your blessings are going to come from.
Very true.
And so networking is that kind of blessing that the more you give to it, the more you gain.
The one of the questions I had were there any because there's actually going with like giving in relationships is, were there any specific like people or partnerships that you can recall that have helped you really propel your business forward? And it could be it could be a specific type person, or it could be it's a type of person, like certain like people in these fields, or maybe a specific person, if you want to mention any stories. Well,
I think the first thing was, and we were both in this B&I group together for a while, and a lot of them were tradespeople. They weren't even creatives. But what I learned from working with other people is that an aspect also of my business in Savvy Custom Swag is that we also print. So after the fire, we and then there was COVID, we found we couldn't rely all the time on having to get things done by doing the traditional way, where you go and you actually buy from as a wholesaler and then you sell your promotional products. Excuse me. So what we ended up doing was getting a lot of situations where we had to pivot. We had to make things quickly. Someone needed stuff and they needed it in 2 weeks. And we couldn't get it in 2 weeks if we outsourced it. It had to be done. And so in that pivoting, though, it meant that we went from being a promotional products consultant firm to now becoming more and more of an actual maker and producer. In a sense, aspects of what you would see in a trades company became the same aspects I had to deal with. So I learned a lot from just the boots on the ground. How do you actually manage people? I didn't learn fast enough for my tastes. I wish it had been faster, but I did learn a lot. And then I think that next layer in was when you came into the chapter and we were dealing with more creatives and we started to talk together. And then I learned about that collaboration. But in terms of, was there one specific, like, I guess, as they say, lucky break, if you want to call it that, or one specific person where I did this and that just landed everything. I don't know. I think that I would agree with other people, and I don't know who originally made this quote, that it's not so much about the lucky break, it's about being available when the opportunity presents itself.
Okay.
Putting yourself in a position to take advantage of those lucky breaks is the real key to success.
So that's like it's a quote that I was taught long ago. It was like, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. So it's like, and then opportunity knocks on the door of the person who's prepared. So what was it? What was the exact term? But it's like preparation unlocks the door for opportunity, or something along those lines. You know.
Right.
But yeah, like you said, you set yourself up. You make sure that you were set, prepared, and then when those opportunities came knocking, you were ready and good to go for those big breaks, even small opportunities and everything.
And I think that the even more important one is the one that my mother used to quote me when I was a kid. And she used to say that the same people you meet on the way up are the same ones you meet on the way down. And I think that has actually served me quite well, in that it's looking at the smallest, it could be the smallest account. And I once had someone say to me, I think my daughter said to me once, he said, "Why are you messing with this small account?" And so I just did the job because they wanted something. I can't remember what the occasion was for. It turned out that this one person, it was the smallest swag gift item you could ever say. But they were raving about it to another friend. That friend ended up calling, and they were somebody who was in a position to buy a large amount of items from another company. So it's all about treating every single thing that you produce, in my case, I produce something as well, as the need to be at your best.
Right.
It's taking pride of ownership, pride of what you do. And that's the preparation that leads to everything else.
Right. So make sure, for our viewers, make sure that when you are out there, creating whether your scripts, doing your photography, making your music and such, put your 100% into it. Even if it's it could be someone who could be doing a project, whether you're bartering for someone for free, like for your trading services, whether someone's paying a small amount or a high amount, put 100% into it, because you never know who that person could connect you with, and that could, like you just said, make into an even bigger product, or return on your investment.
Yes, in fact, I think I recall you doing something very similar, in that you started out. I decided I was going to do some kind of. I think it was having an open house. We did an open house where we were going to show a lot of the swag items that we did. When was that thing?
I remember that.
But then also, Tato, you started coming in and then doing free headshots.
Right.
Right. And we set everything up so that we were utilizing the space that I had at the time. And also, there was this incentive of there's these free headshots. So it was a win-win in the collaboration for both of us.
Right.
But by doing that, you were giving something of value to business owners who might not even understand why they should get a headshot.
Yeah.
It wasn't about them being cheap. They just literally had never heard of it. They started their business like in their basement, like I did, right? Except for I started in the creative side. And they didn't know that there's this thing called a headshot. I should get that so I can make a better brand. And so then you did this for them, and you showed them this one picture. It wasn't like they got like a whole, you got to be reasonable.
Yeah.
But you gave them just enough of a taste of what they should be looking for. And once they saw it, they didn't want to go back to what they had before. Right. And so then you help them to elevate their understanding of what we do. And I think in the creative space, that is one of the challenges, is that people who aren't creative, people who don't know what we do or understand what we do, and they're not already visual. They just telling them that's not going to make it for them.
Yeah.
They have to experience it in some small way. Similar to going to Costco. Like you go to Costco and they always have all these different little things to taste. I don't know if they also do that at Sam's Club or BJ's, but at Costco, I know you go to the Costco, and when you're, especially on the Sundays, if you go, there's all these little samples of food items at the store. And the idea is that you don't know if you want to buy this new gobbledygook food something, right? You don't know if you want that because yes, you don't know. Yeah, I know I have these weird phrases, but you don't know, right? I mean, if you think about it, if you didn't really know what pesto is, right?
Yeah.
And it's this green stuff, it looks grainy, it's some little jar. Why would you ever buy that? Right?
100%.
If you had never experienced it, right? If it wasn't in your culture, right?
Yeah.
And so you go there and someone's showing you this thing and they give you this little bite-sized experience. And then if you like that particular experience, you're like, oh, now I know what's in the jar because I think it's illegal to open the jar without buying it, right? Right. I think that's a little bit illegal, right? But they've given you an opportunity to get a little tiny taste of it. You've experienced it, you liked it, and now you know you're going to come back and get some more and you're going to pay for it this time. And so that works.
So then, I mean, obviously I've done it too, because we did talk about bartering in a previous episode. And so free, like you said, free samples, like giving people a taste of what you offer. What I've recommended for people is that if you're going to do something like that, always just make sure that there is some kind of return on your investment. Whether it's like, for example, like we did the event together, how was my return on investment? Well, I was able to get all the contacts of everybody who showed up at the event. So I could, one, send them out their picture. Two, now I have them added to my emailing list. Some of those people actually got converted into customers and such. So it's okay to do free stuff. Just make sure you cover your bases so you're not getting taken advantage of, or that you just do it and then nothing comes out of it and such. Because it's very easy to be like, all right, cool, I'll do like for instance, like a headshot thing for somebody. But then if you're not getting any contacts, if you're not getting anything else like that, how can you expand and grow your business too and whatnot? So
I mean, that's a whole other thing too, is that when you're looking at doing things, especially like, I mean, we're coming into a season now where there's going to be a lot of charity events. You've got, like, I don't even remember when Alex Lemonade stands come out and all these different things come out. And people, of course, you want to be there for your community. But I think at first, I would get all these phone calls. We do swag, we do gift baskets. So it's a common thing when people are having a fundraiser that they're going to call us.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't want to say no. But then I finally had to come up to this process, and maybe this will help some others who are thinking about it, is that I had to designate, here's how much I can afford to give to charity each year from the business side of charity. Mm. And so then when I came up with this amount, and then once that amount is strategically given out, then it's simple. I can just say to them, oh, I'm so sorry, we've already completed our budget for our charitable donations this year. And that made things a lot smoother because I wasn't saying no to some child who's about to die of who knows what. I mean, it was just, it was heartrending. Yeah. And I'm a mom.
Yeah.
Right? So I felt like I can't just say no, but I couldn't say yes every time. I mean, I wouldn't have any money.
Right.
Right? I couldn't pay my bills. So I had to, kind of be more strategic. And I also had to say, hey, I can give X amount of promotional products or discounted promotional products to this event, and I do need in return, some advertising on your website or on your charity's website, or like I had to learn that process, and that was something that nobody told me, like that you could just set a budget.
Yeah, I think that is excellent. I think a lot of people could take a great value because we want to give back. We want to, help each other out, whether our community, whether you're in a church or you're part of a Boys and Girls Club or some kind of community. But, at the end of the day, we have to still get paid because we have to pay our bills. Right. The electric company doesn't keep the electric on by us being nice and friendly. They said, no, we need money for the electric company too. Right. So, but that's a great point, that setting a budget, a necessary budget, like, okay, cool, we can donate, like, we'll just throw a random number, $1,000 is our budget for the year. That could be high for somebody, that could be low for a business and such, but we'll say $1,000 is the budget, and then you can donate whatever time. So that way you're contributing to your community, like you said, but then also knowing that, okay, I'm not going to overexert myself too. And that's key. Overexertion happens to a lot of business owners, especially creatives. That I see, because we want to get out as much as we can. We want to create, but then we hit burnout too. But setting a budget and setting those parameters, I think, is a great point for people.
Right, and it's also too is that the other thing I had to learn was that in addition to setting a budget, I had to decide which types of organizations did I want to work with. Like, so for instance, in my case, having been a single mom, I'm very partial to anything that's charitable that affects and impacts children and women, just because that was something that I experienced.
Right.
So, it's something that was like great process for me to like decide, okay, like I'm going to be doing some work with a charity in Florida because they work with people who've been trafficked and they help them to not be trafficked. Let me just say it that way.
Right, yeah.
Opposite, right? Sorry. See, I said that straight. I think I said that wrong. All right. No, we want them to not be trafficked. And so once someone's become out of that, though, you're here. And then what do you do? And someone has to help you. Someone has to transition from they were in this horrible situation. Yes, they were rescued, but there's more, in a sense, rescuing that needs to be done. They need to be able to get training and be able to get out of the system and be able to get jobs and all the processes that have to happen.
Yeah.
And this organization helps with that. So that's, another part of it. And the third part of that also is learning the process for how to ask for those things. Because again, as creatives, we just think, okay, we just gave this. You have to plan ahead. You have to have your budget. You have to have, here's what I need to get in order to be able to work with this charity.
Yeah.
And here is the process by which I can do it. That was the other thing I didn't know. I started out trying to just do this, is that there's an actual process. I needed to have forms. I need to say to someone, yes, okay, we can volunteer to bring these swag items for your fundraiser. You have to also, if we're going to set it up, even though I'm not getting paid, you at least have to feed the staff or give them the lunch during the setup time. Because my people here and there starved.
Yeah.
Literally. That happened once. I didn't have a process. So that's...
And then you learn from that.
And then you learn.
Oh, I hope a lot of our viewers are learning from your great career and everything too. We had what advice? Now we're shifting gears back a little bit more back to networking a little bit. What advice would you give creatives that are struggling with networking and then putting themselves out there?
In the old times, I would have been like, just go do it. See, I told you I've grown a little. I now understand that there's different personalities, right? So I think I'm going to put a different hat on, so to speak. I'm going to take off the hat of this entrepreneurial spirit, put on the hat of a lot of creatives. They just want to sit in their cubby and they want to create. And that's the safe zone, right? And I think, especially as a creative, we put our heart and soul into things. So it feels like if I go out there and I network and they don't like what I do, or it feels like they're rejecting you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a part of it, is that first thing is to try to, I know it's hard, but try as a creative to separate yourself, your own personality, from the service or the product that you're selling. Even though, yes, you've put a piece of yourself into it. It's not like the Horcruxes in Harry Potter. You didn't put your entire self into it, right? Like you're not actually going to get hurt, right?
Right.
But we need to know that we can just create something that's of a distance. I think what helps with that is it's like they used to call it an elevator pitch, or having something you've prepared that you're going to show people. Because then there's this object that's outside of yourself, so it makes it easier to connect. So, for instance, when I first got started, I didn't know what to do because I was trying to explain to people what a branded swag item was.
Right.
And in their minds, they'd just been used to, you just go online, you buy some drivel, and it's just a tchotchke. That's what they called it, tchotchkes, right? And they had no vision for the fact that it could be more. They could literally make an entire event, that you could have all the water bottles wrapped, you could have all this thing. They didn't understand that. And I didn't know how to bridge that gap. So then I basically started making an actual sample up of something and bringing it every week, because it's one group we were in, we met every week. And so once I started bringing a visual item that people could see, it changed everything. Number one, because then we weren't talking about what do I do.
Yeah.
And then two, it became about this external service or this external object that they could get. And it also made it a lot easier, since I was just starting out with networking, to feel more comfortable. Because you're getting these positive experiences with people interacting with this service or with this item. And then it kind of was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Be all right. It's good.
Take
You
the
do it.
little baby steps, try to a little smaller, and then before you expand out into a larger market kind of strategy.
Yeah. It just kind of like, it works. You know? And I will also say something else to you, is that I think a lot of people think that they should start with their family and friends. And if you're the kind of creative like me, that was super scary. Because in my mind, if my family rejects me or my friends reject me, that was worse than if a stranger did it.
It's
Because in my mind,
yeah.
a stranger is a stranger. I care, but I don't care as much.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas if I show this thing to my family and they reject it, I'll be crushed. So I went the opposite. I did not start with family and friends. Family and friends can be sometimes the worst critics too, because they're even more critical, more because they're concerned about you. I mean, it is their concern. Most people are not entrepreneurs, right? And so they just feel like it's scary or whatever. So I started that way. I started with the strangers and showing them something outside of myself. That made it more safe.
That's like a lot of musicians. They'll start like in a small town. Maybe they could play songs in like a little bar or cafes and such. And then they leave, and it's always the classic story. They leave and go to the big city, and then they make their big break because they're playing in front of all these huge crowds and stuff. And I think that's kind of the mentality that you've set with, like, you know, your family and friends are kind of like the small town, whereas, like, you know, they have a perspective. They know who you are. Maybe they're not used to you being this creative, but then you go to the outside, the big city, the crowd, the groups and everything, and then they can actually appreciate it because they're like, well, they don't know you, so the only thing they can associate with you is your art and your creativity.
That's part of it too. It is true, but I think it was the opposite. In fact, though, I have to say there was some downside to that. Because I had family and friends who didn't actually realize that I had the kind of business I had until I was in Florida doing these big things, or I was in front, you know, like I'm doing an event in New York. And then they were like, well, where'd this come from? So it is what it is. Mm-hmm. Everybody's journey is different. Isn't that what we said?
So I guess we'll take it from your journey perspective. Maybe it would have been better, more that happy balance where you did go out in front of the strangers, but then while you're in front of the strangers, then you started kind of trickling a little bit in front of friends and family. So
that would have been better. Yes. But remember, I already told you I didn't ever figure out work-life balance until I got to this point. So
right. Well, you probably were like, oh, well, my friends and family are already working with me anyway, so I don't need to tell them anything.
And that was a process.
Oh, man, that's great. Oh, man. Naomi, you look like you have some great, you have a question on your mind?
Not a question. I was just replaying over about how you were talking about just a little bit earlier about you brought the water bottle and everything with you and stuff. It was almost like your portfolio of your work and everything,
yes.
Which is good because then depending on what type of creative you are, that's why like some musicians will record some of their songs, or that's why some people would do voiceovers and put out their product, or photographers will put out examples of their work and everything. Because it's like, if you're not putting out examples of your work, then they might know you, but they might not actually know what you do. And if they don't know what you do, how can they support you? Or how do they know to come to you when they're looking for that and everything? So it's like you just bringing something simple as a water bottle. Now, like, they know, like, oh, she does like branding and stuff, or water bottles, or like creative in that aspect. And like, oh, I'm going to hit her up when I need something and all.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%. We talked about some of the creative things, you meet up and be. Are there any other type of creative groups or groups that you recommend people joining?
Your Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce. There we go. Yep.
I mean, it's like usually a very friendly crowd. It's the perfect place to like just dip your toe in the water, so to speak. You're not having to join anything, you know, the first day you get there. And then too, I think the other place that's really good to go. It's going to sound strange, but it depends on the kind of creative work you do, are flea markets or small vendor opportunities.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's a great way to test out the market. Like, say you're not already, you know, set up as a business owner. but you just want to see, is there anybody who would kind of want what it is that I'm offering? A lot of times, like churches, fundraisers, organizations, all kind of things, they have these vendor shows where they're going to like raise money and you pay a small fee for your table. But when you do that, you start to see, like say you had 5 different products that you were going to start with. Well, you bring them all and you see which ones people like, but you didn't lose that much. Worst case scenario, I mean, well, there used to be in the olden days, there was these tables you could get for $25 or $50 in a church thing, but that probably is long gone. So it's probably $100 even at the church one right now. But either way, it's just this way to get something, dip your toe in the water, bring some things. You get experience. You get to see what people like. And of course, in marketing, we would call that, right? We would do a marketing analysis.
Yeah.
And you can see what your target market wants. Well, the poor man's way, as they say it, of doing that would be go to one of these small vendor craft shows, show your wares, and you'll start to see, if you have enough variety, which things people gravitate towards.
Right.
And it's a great way to get started. And then, 2, other people who are there will give you their feedback. And again, you start collaborating with the other people who are at the various tables doing the vending as well.
Yep, definitely talk with the other people that are there because, you all can, you're creating, you have the creative products, so you have like crafts and stuff. I mean, obviously I'm a photographer, there's musicians, but then it doesn't have to necessarily be just creators you network with. You can network with accountants and all other different types of businesses and such. So, but that's great. I love that. I didn't even think about the fairs and the crafts and stuff, and because that's not really in my realm, but there are creatives that do, like our the graphic designers or the painters and artists and stuff like that. That's more their realm and such, and I think that's some great insight for them to go out to. And I mean, shoot, Katie, you have been fantastic. Let us know, Katie, what's next for Katie Taylor and Savvy Custom Swag?
Well, now I'm doing the things I probably should have done when I started the business, which was what's next is creating branded swag experiences. So it's all about now not just one individual piece or one, like people think they're going to come to a promotional products person and they're going to buy, I'm going to buy some pens. I say, yeah, I'm going to buy some pens or I'm going to get some business cards. But it's more about thinking about the entire thing. If you're going to have a corporate event, right, then it's not only just what are the giveaways you're going to give away at the event. It's also what are the backdrops going to look like? Are you going to do a flower wall? Are you going to do just a basic thing with a photo booth? Are you going to do, what are your welcome signs going to look like? And is it all going to become a cohesive experience? When people open up your swag bag, what do they experience when they open it? It's not just that we're going to throw some stuff in the swag bag. So as I've grown the brand now, what we're focusing on is working with people, again, just in the same way we've always worked with them, but at a different level. How can we take what you want to do and, again, remember that last part of through the joy, the opportunity, the creativity, right? And that moving, touching, and inspiring people. We want people to receive your piece of swag that you source through us and consider whatever that is, whether it's something that's 50 cents all the way up to $50 or more. And we want them to get that and experience joy. We want them to experience happiness. We want them to understand who you are through it. And that's an experience design.
Right.
And so I think I'd want to leave people with that. When I say experience, people think of an event as just this, it has to be a big social event. It could just be 20 people that you want to give a nice holiday gift to show them that you appreciate them. But what it is getting people to understand about the experience and to grow. But truthfully, yes, we're trying to grow ourselves in bigger and bigger experiences, big events, large events in which we design every aspect of what's going to be involved from the standpoint of, as some might know it, a giveaway, but at a higher level.
Okay. All right. I love it. Naomi, did you have any other questions for Katie before we?
No questions, but I did want to circle back to something that you did brought up when you were talking about like the nonprofits and everything and stuff like that. So it's like you brought up that even creatives, there's a way that we can help bring back and give back to the community and everything and stuff like that. Because a lot of people think of like, oh, all I do is this, and they pigeonhole themselves into one little small thing, and they're like, I can never help the world, or I can never help other people, or never even help just this small little aspect of my community because all I do is this. Think outside the box. There's like how you said you give some of your products to these things. So it's like you're not necessarily directly maybe being there and stuff, but you're contributing towards it and their whole purpose and everything. So there are ways that creatives can give back and everything and all. We just have to look for those opportunities and stuff. So I like that.
And I think too, again, just to reiterate again though, even when you're doing that, and I think it does come back to, valuing yourself. Thank you for bringing that in, Naomi. That's a great point. Is that we do tend to think, well, I'm only doing this little thing, or I only started here, or I'm only starting in the basement, but we don't think that, too, especially if you're running more of a service-oriented, like at least with mine, there is a product. Mm-hmm. So I could say objectively, this is this much, right, that I'm giving. But if you're running a service, it can be more, I think, difficult. It can also, I think, be a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for, where you just feel intimidating, a little bit intimidating.
Yeah.
To set a price for yourself. But I think that would be a part of it, too, is that, yes, almost every person I know that has a fundraiser, they need someone to do the graphics. Sometimes they have to get, they're just whatever they're throwing together.
Right.
Right? But if you can say, hey, I can do the graphic design package for all of your flyers and for your Eventbrite and for your fundraiser materials. And then, because I see that you said that if you have a sponsorship package and I could get X amount of, publicity on the internet or whatever, well, that's great. Because if you just show them, here's the thing, you can do a lot.
Yeah.
And it really does have an impact.
Sure thing.
Yeah,
Awesome.
definitely.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, Katie, for being our guest today on our Creative Connective Corner. I hope our viewers were able to get a lot of insight from you, learn about your business, and then, hopefully they can use some of these tricks and the knowledge that you've gained and help better off their business and use it for networking. And just honestly, there's a lot of just great business knowledge that was just shared today. So,
and of course, I'm open to networking and collaboration. So you can definitely hit me up on Instagram at Savvy Custom Swag, and we'll set up a time and sit down and talk over a cup of coffee, because I'm still on to the, or if you're not a coffee person or a tea person, you can just do a Zoom if you need to. But yeah, I'm open.
Yeah, we will put Katie's contact, her email, her website, her social media handles in our description, so that way you all can reach out to her. Don't forget, you guys can always find us on www.23journeyscreatives.com. And I am your host, Tato Dadson, with my wife, Naomi.
Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you, Katie, and everyone. You all have a great day. Signing out.